Thanks so much for joining us today on Court Reports. I'm Hans Fogle along with Don Aines.
Hiya, Hans.
How you feeling?
Passable.
Passable is pretty good considering the temperature and the illnesses going around. We've got a few high-profile incidents and other cases going on in Washington County this week.
And we can start with one that was pretty high profile for a period of years, and that was the murder case of Joshua Edwards. Mr. Edwards is accused of shooting and killing Jackson Rodriguez back in 2006 here at an apartment in Hagerstown. Also of shooting and maiming a man named Tony Perry in the same incident. However, he was able to get out of this area and escape to Great Britain, where he spent upwards of 6 years before authorities were able to extradite him back to Hagerstown. They had to go through the European Human Rights Court, because Mr. Edwards was claiming some issues of cruel and unusual punishment over the issues first that Maryland still officially has a death penalty, although they don't exercise it much, and also that a life without parole could be considered cruel and unusual punishment. It took a while, but the European Court of Human Rights did not side with Mr. Edwards. He came back last summer. So his trial began. A jury was selected on Tuesday, and testimony was taken. And then in the second day, as the second day of the trial was beginning to start, Judge John H. McDowell, declared a mistrial. It turned out that a prosecution witness, witness for the state, an eyewitness to the shooting, had apparently been represented by Edwards' defense attorney in a non-criminal matter less than a year ago. So it established a possible conflict of interest and would have been difficult for the trial to go on. So Mr. Edwards' case is probably now another 8-9 months down the road. Again, this is Mr. Edwards came from Brooklyn, New York. So did his accomplice, Olusegun Ogundipe. He was from New York, who was convicted in a trial back in 2008.
Based on this same
Based
incident?
on the same incident. And I believe he's still doing a life sentence. The victims, Rodriguez and Perry, were also from New York, and apparently it was involved something, a large amount of cocaine, and that resulted in this double shooting. And but the witnesses, I think Mr. Perry and an eyewitness, the one who was represented by the defense attorney, were both available. But it's going to be a few months now before that case can get back underway.
The drug crimes always seem to escalate into crimes of violence.
Well, quite often we do get people from out of town that come in, and they tend to be more violent. One of the things I heard was they can get a better price for, if you go from New York to Hagerstown, you can get a better price for your product.
The downside of our proximity to Interstate 81 and Interstate 70.
Very true.
Don, we hear often on court reports about plea agreements with the accomplice already sentenced, convicted on that life sentence. Unlikely that he'd be offered a deal at this point. Can they go back and do that to get testimony against?
As far as I know, Mr. Ogundipe was not on the list of state witnesses. I can't tell you that for sure, but they did have, obviously, the surviving victim and a woman who was a witness inside the apartment who were ready to testify for the state. We'll see if Mr. Ogundipe is in the state lineup next time around.
This is why we offer the disclaimer that neither I nor Don are attorneys, don't necessarily know all the facts of a case, but we do bring you what we have based on what's in the court and in the court records.
Well, under state law, there's only so much outside. State's attorneys and defense attorneys aren't allowed to comment in depth on their strategies or other things. List of witnesses, potential witnesses, is usually contained in a set of subpoenas.
The other high-profile case started with a police standoff recently. Dan Dirth actually has a report on where that stands at this point.
A man charged with stabbing a teenage girl in the chest at a Hagerstown home on Saturday will continue to be held without bond at the Washington County Detention Center. Washington County District Court Judge Mark Thomas said Tuesday during a bond review hearing that 38-year-old Jennerette Dixon of 340 North Jonathan Street in Hagerstown was a danger to society. Dixon is charged with 7 counts, including first-degree and second-degree attempted murder. A conviction on the first-degree attempted murder charge carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Police responded shortly after 4 p.m. Saturday for a report of a stabbing at 340 North Jonathan Street. When officers arrived, they found a teenage girl with a knife embedded in her chest. The man who allegedly stabbed the girl then barricaded himself in the home. Dixon came out of the house with his hands up and surrendered to police after a standoff that lasted more than 2 hours. Hagerstown Police Chief Mark Holtzman said Tuesday that the victim was recovering from surgery and was expected to make a full recovery. For the Herald-Mail and HMTV 6, this is Dan Dirth.
Don, I understand Mr. Dixon actually has a criminal history prior to just the alleged molestation of the victim.
Yes, according to Maryland Judiciary Case Search, Jennerette Dixon was convicted in 2003, pled guilty to second-degree murder in Baltimore City Circuit Court. He was sentenced at that time to 25 years with 15 years suspended, so a 10-year sentence. However, with good time credits in the Maryland system, you can get out earlier than the minimum end of your sentence. I think he was released in 2010. The murder he was convicted of in Baltimore involved a stabbing of I believe it was a 19-year-old man. So there was, he was not, however, he was not on parole at the time he was charged last year with the sexual molestation allegations involving that girl. So at that time, a district court commissioner did not see fit to have him sent to jail. So he was out of jail and living in the same house at the time that the assault occurred, in which the girl was stabbed in the chest.
And of course, we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out, but that standoff with police and him being the one to emerge certainly does not bode well for his defense attorney's case.
Well, it
Again,
might require
we're
a
not
little
attorneys.
more ingenuity.
We'll see what the strategy is as we develop. We've got just a little bit of time left, but quickly, just an update on a case out of Pennsylvania.
Yes, there was a man was convicted of homicide by vehicle. Jeffrey Davis, 22-year-old from Chambersburg, was convicted of homicide by vehicle in a jury trial. He got 72 months on an electronic monitor and probation. That was in the January 4th, 2011 death of 18-year-old Christy Myers of Shippensburg.
And there's no, again, no jail time on that. You can learn more at herald-mail.com.